Okay, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started, David. I appreciate this is a meeting of all our commissioners and directors and some others that are on, and it's a kickoff for our compensation study. We're really super excited about this, and there's a couple things that I think you need to know right away. Is that we are doing a complete study, and it does require working with and filling out what we call now PAQs, and they're very much like the JAQs. There's a few subtle differences that you'll notice as you go through them, but they're all in all pretty much the same. So David's gonna go through. He's got a PowerPoint, and David Lookingbill is here from Management Advisory Group International. He's certainly an expert. Management Advisory Group does. They do compensation programs like this all over the country. They focus primarily on state and local governments and school systems, and they just do an outstanding job and have done an outstanding work for us in the past. So, and from an HR perspective, our primary team consists of, in addition to myself, Tammy and Danny and Shelley are going to be working very closely on this, and really Danny and Shelley are going to be working very close with David on almost a daily basis. So, and if you have any issues, please bring them up anytime during the study, because we want to make sure that we want to move this study along, but we want to make sure that we take the necessary time, that that we get good data and we make good decisions on it. So we will take the necessary time, but we do want to move it along. So with that, if you would give David control, Alicia, and David, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, John. Good morning. As John said, my name is David Lookingbill. I'm with Management Advisory Group. We call ourselves MAG. I was involved in the study, I don't know, like 7-8 years ago. So some of you that have been around that long may have met me and spoken with me. I would love to say that I would remember all of you, but I wouldn't. But anyway, I'm going to be, as John said, going through a presentation. This is the same presentation that your employees will be seeing next week when they have their sessions. We like to touch base first with top-level management, because we know that once employees and supervisors and managers start seeing this information, there will be questions. And while you may not have the answers based on what you see, at least you'll be aware of what it is they've seen and can be able to follow up. So as I go through this, I will pause after every few slides for questions, but please, if you have a question, there's some mechanism, I'm not sure what it is on Zoom, but there's some mechanism where you can raise your hand or just jump in with a live microphone, and I'll try and answer your questions as they come up. I don't know about you, but if I wait until the end of a presentation, half of the questions I had, I will have forgotten. So please don't feel bad about interrupting during the presentation itself. And there will be time at the end, for those that want to just make notes and wait until the end of the presentation.
Do you have control, David, or no?
Well, I'm just trying to find my screen. This should be the screen.
There is at the bottom, somebody's mentioned here, there is a.
Okay, there. Now, are you all seeing the presentation, the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, super. Okay. Going to do first just a little bit of shameless self-promotion here. MAG is a full-service HR consulting firm, as John indicated. We work exclusively in private sector. We've done everything, as John said, from county, municipal, utility districts, school districts, Indian tribes, judicial systems, fire departments, sheriff's departments. If it's in the public sector, we have been involved with them somewhere along the line. Our primary services are classification and compensation. We do also occasionally some benefit work. The class and comp, of course, involves pay plan development, job evaluation, creating or updating job descriptions or specifications. And our key feature is what we consider to be one of the premier HR software products that we call Classification Manager. The presentation this morning will cover what we understand the project to be, what the goals are, the role of your employees, the role of their immediate supervisors. I am going to cover also the completion of the job profile questionnaires, and this is an online questionnaire. Again, those of you that were here before, you have some idea of what this is. As John indicated, we have made a few modifications, but nothing that is significantly different from before. We've just tried to clarify a little bit, and here and there we've gathered a little additional information that we didn't previously. And then at the end, we'll talk about next steps. Okay, we are working on a comprehensive class and comp study. There are about 1,675 full and part-time positions that we're working with, and these are in about 370 individual job titles or job classifications. The project that we're going to be embarking on is designed to get current information from employees and their immediate supervisors. That is the job profile questionnaire part. We use those to get information that helps us create internal equity or set up appropriate internal relationships of the classes within your organizational structure. We also will be doing a salary survey, market survey, to get information that helps us create a structure that will keep you in good competitive stance with your peer and competitor organizations. Once we have all that, we pull this all together into a classification and compensation structure. And based on that structure, we will then identify the cost to put that structure in place. Now, with our classification manager software, we have a great deal of flexibility in terms of making that implementation affordable. It is our belief that no matter how good the structure is or how well it suits your organization, if you can't afford to put that structure in place, it is essentially worthless. So through our software, we are able to do a huge variety of what ifs to ensure that putting our recommended structure in place is in fact affordable. And then once everything is together, we transfer the software and the database and everything that we have used to create the structure to your HR people. And I spend time training them on the use of the software so that as you go down the road, you have all the tools to maintain the system that we used to create it. And I know that Tammy and her folks have been doing some of that since the last process, but I think there's probably been enough staff turnover that it maybe hasn't been utilized as fully as it could be. So we're going to make sure that everybody's up to speed and knows how to proceed with it. Okay, there are things that people always are concerned about, especially employees, when they hear about a study like this. So we try to allay some of those fears and put a damper, at least as much as possible, on the rumor mill by also indicating what the study is not going to do. This is not a staffing needs or a staffing level study. This is not about right sizing or downsizing or any other kind of sizing. This is not about reorganization. This is not intended for your people to wake up one morning and find out they're in a completely different unit in a completely different department and a completely different set of job duties. It is not about that at all. We do organizational reviews, but this is not what we're doing here. This is not about individual employee performance. We are not evaluating performance. We are not trying to gauge whether individuals are doing their jobs well or whether they're simply keeping their chair from floating up to the ceiling. That is not what we're doing, and we would basically have no information available to do that with anyway. This is one that becomes very popular with employees as soon as they hear there's a study going on. It's like, oh yay, we're all getting raises. Well, no. There will be people that get increases due to the results of our recommendations, but there is no guarantee that everyone will get anything. The other big fear and the other big rumor is that people are going to get their pay cut. MAG does not ever recommend that an individual employee's pay be decreased. That does not mean that we might not recommend that the pay grade for their job goes down, because that may be a result based on either market relationship or internal organization relationships. But an individual employee's salary will not be recommended to go down. Okay, what role do your employees and supervisors play? They are really key in having a good outcome to this. They both serve as what is known legally as subject matter experts. The employee and their immediate supervisor are the two people that have the best information about what their job is and how it's done. So we rely on them for the information. They provide basically all of the information used for the job analysis process, the internal relationship process. And that is why it is so important that we have good participation in the online questionnaire process. This does not mean that every person needs to fill out a questionnaire, but we need to have at least one questionnaire from every job title. So if one of your employees is the only person in a given job title, it becomes very critical that that person complete a questionnaire. If you have 20 truck drivers, do we need to have a questionnaire from all 20 of them? No, we don't. But we do need to have information about what the truck drivers do. Now, oftentimes for jobs that are where employees are basically doing the same thing and have the same supervisor, it's fine for employees to get together in a group and work on one questionnaire together. The only thing that we ask in a situation like that, we have a page where we ask for additional comments. If several employees participate in completing a questionnaire, we ask that on that page, they list the people involved so that we have a documentation that they did in fact participate in the survey. Okay, supervisors. Supervisors, again, play a very critical part because it's up to them to review what their employee has given us. In the review process, they are not allowed to change answers from the employee. They are not allowed to delete answers from the employee. When the employee has finished the questionnaire, and those of you that were here previously will remember this, when they complete the questionnaire, they click a button that essentially locks that questionnaire from any further changes, okay? Once that questionnaire is locked, then the supervisor is able to access it. They can agree with what the employee has said, they can disagree, and they can make comments. If the supervisor agrees with what the employee has indicated, they can make comments or not. The option is theirs. If they disagree with what the employee has given us for information, they must comment and say why they disagreed. Finally, we often get questions from employees, well, am I going to be able to see what my supervisor said about my questionnaire? The answer is yes, but not immediately. Again, once this study is done, all of this information will be entered into the database that is given to HR and your people there. So at that point, employees, if they wish, can be allowed to see the comments that their supervisors may have made. Any questions so far? All right. Okay, the job profile questionnaire. This is the data gathering instrument that we use, as I said earlier, to get information from your employees and their immediate supervisors about what their job is. It is the basis for our job analysis process and for the job profiling that allows us to create those internal relationships among all of the jobs across your organization. All of the employees will have the opportunity to complete a questionnaire. Again, as I said earlier, it's not necessarily important that every employee complete a questionnaire. We do, however, not want to have a situation where an employee is not allowed to create a questionnaire. Again, it's important not that every employee participates, but that we get information through the questionnaire from at least one employee for each job title. Questionnaires, the supervisors are employees, so they will fill out a questionnaire about their job as well. And if they complete their questionnaire before their employees do, they can finish and lock their questionnaire, and they're still able to go back and review the questionnaires of their employees, even if they've already finished. And then, of course,
I have a question, if I can ask here. This is Sally.
Yeah, Sally, good morning.
If we have a lot of employees who have done JAQs recently, can those be used? I mean, is HR going to give those to you? How are they put in this system?
We would need to have them entered in through the online questionnaire in order to be able to use them.
Okay, are they the same? I mean, can they just cut and paste them and put them in?
Well, I'm assuming that what you have is in electronic format, probably Word.
Tammy, you and John are going to have to answer that.
For their questionnaires that they filled out previously.
So it depends. If we've done a study recently, a division might have used Word to complete that and then sent it to us, printed, signed it, etc. If the last one you completed was in the study itself, then you would just want to probably review that and type in any updates or changes to a position. There are a few questions that are a little bit different on the JPQ, this newest version, than the JAQ we're currently using. But for the most part, a lot of the information could be reused if a job hasn't changed.
Exactly. There sometimes is a problem with the copy and paste, especially, Word puts a lot of formatting things in their documents. And sometimes when you copy and paste into an online document, sometimes that formatting gets scrambled a little bit.
Okay.
But it probably, because we're not asking people to write 1,000-word volume on what's going on. So even if they have to retype tasks, and that would be probably the thing that would be most likely to need redoing, would be the tasks. Even if they have to do that and they're looking at it and just retyping into the new form, that should not take very much going on. But that does bring up, I'm glad you asked that question, Sally, because that brings up another thing that comes up from time to time. Some organizations, and I suspect that this will be the case with you, have employees, especially in the field, that may not be particularly computer literate, or because they don't have a desk per se, they may not have ready access to a computer. So in a situation like that, it's perfectly fine for that employee to sit down with an office support person, either in their division or wherever, bring up their questionnaire and have that office person type in their responses to the question. And again, in situations like that, if you've got a number of employees that want to work together for one questionnaire, that works out quite well also.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, now, job profile questionnaire. What is it and how do we get there? Okay, to get there, you go to www.magintl.org. That will bring you to our homepage. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a radio button called Job Profile Questionnaire, Learn More. Now, one of the big differences with this new questionnaire is that you can use any browser. Our previous questionnaire, basically you could only use Internet Explorer and Chrome, I believe, and sometimes Firefox. Now, anything that you can get on the internet with, you can access our questionnaire. So those people in your organization that are Apple Mac people, they now can go to it, even on their iPhone, although I don't know how anybody could see well enough to do it on an iPhone, but maybe that's just because I'm getting old. So that is one of the big differences, is that any browser can be used. Okay, when you click on that button, it'll ask you to choose your organization from the drop-down list. The organization that they are to choose is LFUCG 2022. When they click on that, they'll be brought to this page. This is their login page. The login and password are both their employee ID. Now, Tammy brought up a good question the other day as we were talking about this. Your IDs in your system have a leading 0. That apparently doesn't necessarily show up on other documents like paychecks, ID cards, etc. But they must have that leading 0 in order to get in. Okay, once they get in, they will see the first page is an information page. This will be pre-populated with their name, their official job title, department, etc. Now, there's none of that information is editable except for the working title. If they have a working title that's different from their official class title, they can enter it there. And that sometimes gives us information, especially when there may be an issue of appropriate classification. So if your official title is administrative assistant, but you're known far and wide as Queen of the Realm, put that in the working title and we'll go from there. We also ask them to identify their immediate supervisor. They will click a drop-down list. They can start typing and identify their supervisor. The list will include the supervisor's name and job title. So in case you have people with the same name, you probably don't have two people with the same name also in the same job title. What this does is create the link then between the employee and the supervisor, so that when the employee has completed the questionnaire, the supervisor will be able to go in and do the review. Just another note, even after the employee has locked down their questionnaire, if they have selected the wrong supervisor, and you'd be surprised how often that happens, they can still go back. This is the only thing that they can change after their questionnaire has been locked. If they need to change supervisor, they can come back and reselect the appropriate supervisor. Okay, now we get into the actual questionnaire itself. It is important that they read the instructions first. It's also important that they click the expand all sections, because that then displays the entire questionnaire instead of just the main headings. If they don't complete their job questionnaire all at once, which is not an uncommon thing, they need to click the red Save My Questionnaire button so that they can come back and complete it later. Once they're finished, they click the I have completed and am submitting it. There's also a provision there that they can print out their questionnaire if they wish. And in printing it out, depending on how you're set up, they can either send it to a paper printer or they can send it to like a PDF printer and save it as a digital file. The option is whatever options you all have for printing within your organization. Okay, essential tasks. This really is one of the core pieces of this questionnaire. This is where the employees indicate what they do, how much of their time they spend doing it, and how important that is in terms of the rank order. Okay, we allow up to 10 task statements. The reality is, if they think they have more than that, they're not identifying tasks, they're identifying activities. This is not about creating a job how-to manual. This is identifying the major activities, the major tasks that they have, so that we can understand how the job works and how it fits in with the rest of the organization. Okay, now, again, those of you that were here before, you'll remember factors. We have 14 factors. All of them will look very much like this. There'll be the name of the factor, a brief description of what the factor means, and then a set of radio buttons that they can pick one that they feel best describes how their job fits into that factor. And then we ask them to provide examples from their tasks that support why they picked that particular level. For those of you that weren't here, these are the factors. These are the 14 factors. One of the things that we feel is very important about our process is that these same factors are used to profile every single job in the organization. We feel that's the only way that you can get an accurate picture of internal relationships across the different types and levels of jobs. Some consulting operations wind up using several groupings. They may have one set of factors for field people, another set of factors for office support people, another set of factors for professional and technical people, and another set of factors for supervisory and managerial people. To us, that does not give an accurate picture across the organization as to how things fit together. You need to use the same yardstick, if you will, to measure everybody, to make sure that you've got internal relationships as close to reality as possible. Now, we do also ask about education, experience, and licenses. Now, here what we're looking for, and again, those of you that were here previously, we are not looking for the employee to tell us what they have now or what they had coming into the job, or what is written on the current class description. We're asking for their opinion as to what level and what amount of education or experience is required for a person to start in that job. So, believe it or not, and we have a hard time convincing our school district friends of this, believe it or not, there are some jobs that do not require a high school education to begin that job. That's reality. Same with experience. Think about it this way. If every job required that you had some sort of experience, how would you ever get your first job? So there are jobs that do not require any experience as well. Now, licenses and certifications, we're looking for two things here. One, are there licenses and certifications that you must have in order to be hired? And then there's a second level. Are there licenses or certifications that within X months of being hired, you have to obtain in order to stay employed? Okay, so those are the two kinds, or two levels of licenses and certifications. Again, we're not looking for what would be nice for a person to have. We're looking for what a person must have either coming in or within some specified period after being hired in order to stay hired. Again, same thing with experience. As I said, believe it or not, there are jobs that do not require experience because after 2 days, they're going to be up and running full speed.
This is Sally. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Rob, I don't know, you and I know that Charlie's on here too, and I don't know the classifications well enough, but let's just say that you've got an equipment operator and you were going to do a group, you know, you were going to do one of these for several equipment operators. If you've got somebody that has to have a CDL license, though, they would need one of these themselves.
I would say that would be the case, yes.
They shouldn't be in the group. They should do one for themselves.
Yeah, if you are breaking out
a license.
Right, if you're breaking out job classes based on licensure, and that's not an uncommon thing. If you've got a group that does not have to have, for instance, the CDL that you're talking about, but you have somebody that's in that title that has to because they have to operate a specific piece of equipment or several pieces of equipment that require that, that would be a good clue that perhaps that person currently is in the wrong job class.
Okay.
Sally, Sally, it's Charlie.
Yeah.
I will say that we will have to break them out to some level because I have some people that are required to have a CDL and some that are required to have a CDL with a tanker endorsement because they're driving a specific piece of equipment.
Yeah, and the reason why I was asking this is exactly is I was sort of gunning because we know how hard it is to get everybody to do these particular JAQs or whatever we're calling them. that we can do one that fits a lot of people, but you're still gonna have areas where you've got to have more than, all your people are not gonna fit into one.
Agreed.
And Rob, you probably got something similar over there.
Yeah, ours are kind of homogeneous, but the working title will help us. For example,
Okay.
an equipment operator senior for us does have to have a CDL, but a sweeper operator also has to have a tanker's endorsement. So we would break sweepers away from backhoe operators. And then some of our entry level jobs, like public service worker senior, you have up to 6 months to get your CDL. I don't see a problem.
Okay, good. Good.
For us.
I think also, and this is not the time to discuss this, but I think there are some alternatives to that that may allow you to recognize the need for some people to have additional levels of license or certification, and yet the group as a whole not need that. So we can talk about that as things go down the road a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no problem. That's what this is for, is to try and get some of these big questions out on the table. Now, up until now, every one of the factors has only allowed you to pick one level. Okay. Now, because every good rule has an exception, unavoidable hazards and sensory requirements allow you to select as many as you wish. Okay. So you can check 1, 3, all of them, whatever. And again, please have your employees give examples from their tasks, from their task statements that support why they picked whatever they picked. Next steps. Okay, starting Monday, this rolls out to your general employee population. We are allowing 2 weeks for them to complete their questionnaires. We're allowing another week for the supervisors to review those. Now, we encourage employees, if they complete their questionnaire quickly, to let their supervisor know so that the supervisor can go in and do the review. Okay, there is no automatic email or notification or anything like that that an employee has completed their questionnaire. So we encourage employees, when they complete their questionnaire, to let their supervisor know. We also send out a list at least twice a week. This will go to HR and to Sally, that identifies for every person in your organization whether they've started their questionnaire, whether they've completed their questionnaire, and whether or not the questionnaire has been reviewed by their supervisor. So there'll be very detailed information available on a regular basis to make sure that people are getting done what needs to be done and reviews are being done as they're available to be done. Okay, once we have all of the questionnaires, the market survey has been in progress. It's going to be starting, I believe, next week, because I've been working with Dan and Shelley and Tammy, now that she's back, to identify benchmark job titles. We had a good set of peer and competitor targets from last time, so those are being used again. This will be great because it'll give some consistency in terms of survey results from last time to this time, so that we're not working with a completely different set of data. It again helps with assuring that market competitiveness to be able to be as consistent as possible. So those get pulled together and meshed into a final, well, not a final, a proposed class and comp structure. We'll have pay grades, we will have jobs assigned to pay grades, all of that good stuff. We then create a draft report that comes back to you all for review. Part of that review process is so that HR and you and top management can have a first look to see if there's something that we've missed. You know, do we misunderstand something? Did we not have information? You know, basically we're relying on paper information. Yes, the paper is electronic, but it's you people, your HR, you as top management that really know where the hot buttons are and where you have potential issues or real issues. So we send this draft report to you all for a review, get your input, go back, re-review, get all of that leveled out and finalized, and prepare then a final report, which we can present to your governing body, or sometimes your HR or Sally or somebody will say, well, no, we'll do that on our own. You know, you've given us enough information. The option is yours as to whether we present it or whether you all present it to your governing body. Then once that's done, like I said, there will be training and the transfer of all of the software and database to your HR so that they'll be able to carry on down the road. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got more. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Why don't we talk, and for this group too, because they're going to be asking questions, and we have talked many a time about how long this is going to take.
Mm-hmm.
And David doesn't have, and we don't either, a firm answer, but why don't you sort of talk, David, a minute about what some of the timing factors depend on?
Sure. Typically, to be real honest, one of the activities that has the greatest impact on time is getting questionnaires completed and reviewed. You know, we set up that 2 weeks for the employees and 1 additional week for the supervisors. I'm not aware that that has ever happened. We don't start out saying you've got 3 or 4 weeks, because the reality there is that if you do that, come the end of 3 or 4 weeks, you'll still have that bunch of people that thought they had plenty of time, so they wait until the very end, and then they still don't have it done. So you push the time frame out further. But typically, you know, if you can stay on top of your employees, if we can get their questionnaires in 3 weeks maybe, and supervisors, again, that additional week. Like I said, the salary survey will get started next week. That's also sometimes an area where we have issues because as you can imagine, well, if you talk to your HR people, they can imagine that responding to a salary survey is not necessarily going to hit the top of the inbox. It's more likely to hit the second Tuesday of next week to-do list. But because we are using the same set of targets and mostly the same set of benchmarks, we already know what the matches are for many of the benchmark titles. That will speed things up quite a bit. So hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks, we will have all of the market survey information. So, you know, hopefully within 6 to 8 weeks, we should be pretty doggone close to preliminary information. Pat, I see you've got a hand raised. What can I do for you?
So I guess this is for Sally also. And I know we're pressed for time, but having employees' responses back in 2 weeks, basically from today, if I understand the timeline, when they haven't even been aware of the process yet, haven't seen the PowerPoint, haven't been explained everything, I think it's just unrealistic, honestly. We just pushed it even 1 week out and gave next week time to get employees informed and trained and those things. I think that would make the process more successful.
Okay, and I think that, Pat, I think we've talked about this, and I think it's going to take longer, as David said, a little bit longer. Here is what the timing issue is. The timing issue is we are not going to make the budget. Okay, we are going to have to put this money that we're going to use for this in a contingency fund. and put that in the budget, because my feeling about here is I want this to be, I am more interested in accuracy than I am in speed. This has to be, we have to have our employees participate. And because if they don't, this doesn't give you the good information. So we're going to be putting our money that we're reserving for this, and we hope it's a sizable sum, we don't know that yet, in a contingency fund, because we can't get this done prior to the budget. Then that brings us into factors of what do we do with our regular across the board increase. Now, I'm not going to get into that right now because I don't know the answer, but all of this collides. And that's why we're trying to at least move as fast as we can. But there is not going to be, if this starts out and doesn't work, that on that timeline, that doesn't mean we can't change. David, don't you agree?
Right, that is exactly right. And Pat, my understanding is that starting Monday morning, these sessions are going to be rolled out to the employees. The questionnaire itself, even though it looks like it's a huge monster, is not that difficult. The most difficult part, and again, those of you that were here previously will understand this, the most difficult part is for employees to identify their tasks. You know, your employees come, they do their job, they know what their job is, but they're not used to breaking it out into tasks. But once they have that, the rest of it is really fairly straightforward. And as Sally said, and as I had said earlier, yes, we set 2 weeks. We know that that's not going to happen. It's not an issue if we push it out. But if we start with it pushed out, we also know from experience that it's going to get pushed out even further, because people say, oh yeah, I've got a month to do this. Oh my goodness, my month has passed and I still haven't done it. What am I going to do? So
sort of like taxes. If we give 4 weeks out, it's going to be 6. So
yeah, that's one I can relate to.
So, well, as I said, there's not going to be a situation in which at the 2-week point, if somebody doesn't have it in, they're not in the study. That's not going to happen.
Right. Wanda, you had your hand up.
Yeah, for those of us that have several people in one classification, is there a way that we can print out a blank, whatever it's been called this time, JPQ, so that the employees can discuss it together and one is filled out for the classification?
Yes, I have given Dan both a Word version and a PDF version of the document. Or alternatively, they can go online, expand all sections and print a blank one online, either way.
Okay, thank you.
Doug.
That's very important, Wanda, because that's going to speed this up.
Right. Doug, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. How do we, I don't know, prevent's not the right word, but I got some folks that think they hang the moon, but probably couldn't find it in the sky. How do we prevent the oversell of people's qualifications?
Well, that's where the supervisory review comes in. You know, as the supervisor, there is a responsibility if, as you say, an employee is hanging the moon, it's that supervisor's responsibility not to change their responses, but to disagree and explain why. And I'll be honest with you, almost as often as not, I have seen supervisors disagree and indicate that the employee has undervalued or understated what their responsibility is. But that's where that happens, is through that supervisory review. And that's why that is important that it be taken seriously. I find it very interesting. And again, this is not as unusual as I wish. I will see a supervisor with 3 people or 4 people in the same job title. When I look at their questionnaires, their tasks are essentially identical. In their factor responses, they are completely different from each other. Yet the supervisor has not disagreed with any of them in terms of their factor responses. Now, that always makes me wonder how seriously the supervisor took that review process. So, it's important that supervisors be involved in this and that they look at what their people say and either agree or disagree and explain why. Adrian.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question. I think I saw someone also put it in the chat. In the employee presentation, is there a little bit more detail on helping them understand how to turn their job activities or duties into tasks so they fit into the, 10 spaces that they have when they're explaining their task statements?
I'm going to say there is not specifically, but there are some additional tip sheets and frequently asked question materials that are available. And I believe those are going to be posted on your intranet. Is that correct, Dan?
Yes, sir. And there's a few questions that are coming through, and I think just really quickly, just to address everyone here. We do have an all LFUCG email composed and ready to go out this afternoon that will explain the process and also give orientation sessions that will be given for the employees. So there'll be 8 orientation sessions done over the next 2 weeks, starting on Monday at 10 a.m. And we'll be going through that. And there will be a website that Stacy Diamond and her team have already developed. And we have been working on that this entire week, getting that ready. It's ready to go, but that page will be accessible. It will have a blank JPQ on there. It will also have instructions on how to do certain things and how to access certain things. And also some frequently asked questions that are here will be available to all employees once that website goes live. So that should answer quite a few of the questions that have come up so far. But yes, employees will be accessible on that webpage. Stacy Diamond just messaged me and said that it's ready to go when we get done here.
And I just want to be real careful and that's great news. And I appreciate everything you're all doing. We've got a slew of people that are not going to see that. I got all the waste management. I've got Rob. I don't know how many you've got. We have to make an all-out effort, and I know HR knows that, to get this same word out to everybody who does not have that computer.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
this will all get missed out there if we don't.
Yes, ma'am. We have another flyer that's been developed as well that will go out to all payroll coordinators today.
Good.
It has a QR code on it that can be scanned and it goes right to the MAG website so that the JPQ can be accessed on a mobile device. We're going to put them in the elevators here in the government center. They can print this off and post it in the break room. They can print copies of it and have it available for folks to pick up. And all the instructions on how to access certain things are there where they can access the sites so that all this information, and of course, my team with the 7 generalists up here, we're available to answer questions and to help employees and to do whatever we need to do to make sure that this process is very robust and we get the best information possible and we help as many people as we can.
Okay. What is this presentation sent to, the presentation that you just gave, David, is that sent out to commit to the people who are on here now?
It can be. You have, again,
I think, John, I think that would be good if we sent out the presentation that was done today to our management staff.
and I think if I understood correctly, I believe that this PowerPoint has already been sent to your intranet. I was talking earlier with John and Dan, and because this session has been recorded, I don't see why this session couldn't be edited so that, some of the stuff that we were all just chatting before the session started. I don't see any reason that this, what we've been going through now, couldn't also be posted there for people to see as well. Because that'll be essentially the same information that is going on in the sessions the first few days of next week.
Rob, are you comfortable? Okay, Charlie? Where we're heading?
Yeah, I think what we're gonna do is we would probably have to have some intentional things as far as, going to sewer line maintenance, going to pump stations and making sure that it's available to them and that we bring it to them. Because they won't see it in the elevator and they probably won't see it on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. We're just gonna have to be, I think that's a good point. We're just gonna have to be real intentional that this is brought out to everybody.
And Sally, if I may, we can have the recording. I worked with Chris Edwards this week through email. And thank you so much, Chris. You've been a great resource. And I learned a lot about the recordings that can be sent and links to a YouTube page that they have. And those can be viewed at any time. So directors would have the ability to bring in a group and they could start it on the in their break room or in their conference rooms or on a computer anywhere at any time to be able to view this and see the orientation sessions, because we'll record one of those as well.
Yeah, that's a terrific feature. Terrific
Good,
feature.
good. We just don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable that is
Right.
not familiar with the technology, because
Yes.
we need those people to be able to do this.
Yes, and it is very important, as I said earlier, it's very important that employees feel that they have had the opportunity to participate. If they
Yes.
choose not to, that's fine. Well, it's not so fine if they're the only one in their job title, but we want everybody to have the opportunity. There isn't particularly an expectation that everyone will avail themselves of that opportunity.
David, I think there's some other questions up top.
Yes, Christy?
Yeah, sure. Shelley was wonderful and pre-warned or pre-educated me about today, and I appreciate that. And she told me how we handle vacant positions, but I've forgotten.
Okay, vacant positions, especially if they are a one-off, can be completed by a supervisor, manager, whoever is theoretically familiar with that job. I have sent a list of IDs and passwords to HR. So for each vacant position, there will be a made-up employee ID number. So that'll just be entered for the username and password, and then whoever draws the short straw to fill out the questionnaire can go online and do that. Ken.
I'm sorry, I put my hand up, but I think I got my answer question
Okay.
by someone else in the text group. Thank you.
Okay. Wanda, did you have another question? Is your
Charlie's
hand still up
got
from
one.
last time?
Charlie's up there.
Okay, Charlie, yes.
My question was actually the same as Christie's, but one additional twist to that. What if you've got someone who just started in that single one-off position like that week, and so they're not in really a position to accurately.
It would probably be just as well, Charlie, to have the supervisor, manager, whatever. If they have been there long enough that their name is actually in the database, then that supervisor or manager would have to go in under that login name. Otherwise, that'll show up as one of the vacants. And again, it's easily identifiable because in that password list, it gives name of the position title and the department. So it'll be real easy to find which vacant position if there wasn't somebody there when the database was created.
Okay, thanks.
We have everybody, or are there still people with questions?
I think Chris, somebody had a question.
I don't see any more hands up right now.
Oh,
but-
mine is in the chat.
Okay,
There's two chats there for me. If you could just kind of
Oh,
check those
okay.
real quick. Thank you.
okay. Okay, Ken,
Yes, the short answer, Chris, is yes. Any employee can fill out a questionnaire on their own. Every employee has that opportunity. We mentioned the group working because sometimes your people find it easier to work together. But if an employee feels that what they're doing is different from what the rest of the people in their job title are doing, yes, it's really a good idea for them to complete their own questionnaire.
Thank you.
now, we want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity to ask their questions. Anything else?
Sally, there was one other question that was asked in the chat. Some people are asking questions about essential tasks.
Yes,
We use those essential tasks to develop the job descriptions. The job descriptions contain most of the essential tasks, but at least the ones that have been identified through most of the JAQs that we've taken before, and then also the job descriptions that we've created for positions that we've studied. So those are also available, the generalists, myself, and we can get those to folks if they need them.
Yeah, and what I would add to that, Dan, is to use those as a starting point. Because just by their very nature, even if they're relatively new, they're going to be possibly a little more general than, especially if it's a job title where there are multiple positions across different departments. There may very well be a much more generalized, but it'll give an idea. And this maybe is an answer. I think Wanda had asked this question earlier about what is a task and what isn't. The information, as Dan's saying, in your current job descriptions will give a good idea as to what a task looks like.
Sally, I have a question.
yes, Bruce.
I have 3 auditors in my office. They're all called auditors. And for the most part, they all do similar work. However, one of my auditors is a certified information system auditor. And so from time to time, he will work on IT related audits, which are I'm sure you know, it's a somewhat different skill set. So they're still auditors, and most of the work they do is very similar, except when he has these occasional IT projects that require a more specialized skill set. Should he be doing a separate one all alone for himself? Would you suggest that or not?
I think he should. And as a matter of fact, with only 3 of them, I think they should each go ahead and do it because they're probably not going to look exactly the same. What you bring up is kind of like what was going on earlier with the special certification or licenses for tanker, et cetera. One of the things that you could do instead of creating a separate job title for IT auditor, because I'm guessing that's not like the major focus of his job.
Right.
But because he has that capability, when that comes up, he's the person that does that. Oftentimes an organization will adopt what they call a skill pay, where if a person has that certification, that person as an employee has greater value, therefore is given, either a flat rate for getting the certification or, a skill pay per pay period for maintaining, because again, if they lose that, because anymore, pretty much all of these things require either CEUs or periodic recertification or whatever. That way, should that person lose that, all you have to do is remove that skill pay. It also gives you the flexibility that if someone else in the office gets that certification, now you've got 2 people and you can decide which one needs the extra work without having to, do something permanent or create a new job title.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
You bet.
As we start this, I want to make sure that everybody you need to ask whatever questions. I know that HR will probably be overwhelmed by questions, but I think they're ready for it. Everybody knows that this is a big job, but the payoff at the end is big too, if we do this right. So we'll start, and please ask any questions that you want. And I better not see anybody be using that vanity title of Queen of the Realm.
That's yours, isn't it, Sally?
That's mine. Don't anybody touch
Hey,
it.
Sally, Sally, you know the highest paid person in the government is some guy from the city, because they're everywhere. Every time you talk to a city, they say some person from the city said that.
You know, I never thought about that, but that's exactly right. I've always wondered who these mysterious people are. It's always somebody from the city. I sort of thought it was Rob myself, but.
Can I ask just one quick final question of HR? You all mentioned that we could use recent JAQs or PAQs. How far back is recent are you talking?
I really believe, Wanda, that it's in our best interest to, I mean, you can use it as a starting point to see how your current job is done, but I wouldn't, it might give you some ideas, but I wouldn't use it per se as your PAQ for this round. And if it's more than a couple of years old, I think it really needs to.
Yeah, I agree, John, that to copy something out of an existing document, unless you did it yesterday, is just really not providing good information.
But
Thank
you know,
you.
like Jennifer was just done with the ARPA manager, so that one is like a month old.
And that's probably a brand new title, isn't it?
That's a brand new title. It's
With a brand new employee, that's
yeah,
about
so
as
I mean,
good as you're
a
gonna
month
get.
old. That's as good as we're gonna get. That's right.
In that situation, that's pretty much as good as you're
Yeah.
gonna get.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say, I really appreciate everybody's help with this, because the study is only going to be as good and as timely. You all are going to be a big part of that. And, if we put good information in, we're going to get great information out, and this will be a really successful study. And if we can do it as timely as possible, we'll have it, we're anticipating, sometime this, midsummer or so. And there's a lot of moving parts and variables, as David said, as responses from other cities and things. But I super appreciate it. If there's anything we can do, we have a great HR team, Danny and Shelley, and all of our generalists that are also involved in this, Amanda Sutton and Mike O and Angela and Kim and all of them. We've gone through this with them. This is a team effort from an HR perspective. And I promise you, we will give you the top level customer service to get this thing done, and get it done right.
Well, and I think the key to this is what was shown today and must continue. And that is, you have to have a lot of information sharing on this. You have to keep coming at this day after day to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
And I will
thank
echo
you.
that, Sally. Thank you to you and all of your staff, and especially the HR staff.
Appreciate it.
As John said, there's a great team there. We had good working relationship last time. I see this time as even better than the last study. So between John's people and our people here at MAG, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Oh, we won't.
The only silly question is the unasked question.
That's right. That's right. Okay, well, thank you all. And here we go.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thank you all.